We are Skyping with Dr. Douglas Gentile, who's an associate professor of psychology at Iowa State University. He is currently in Singapore, and he actually runs the Media Research Lab at Iowa State University, who worked on a story having to do with the effects of video games on youth. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this because I thought it was really interesting. Dr. Gentile, you know, a lot of young men in particular play a lot of video games, and before you know it, you start to think, I wonder if they're addicted to this video game or if there's just something in their brain that switches on when I watch, you know, Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Sure. Well, this is in fact why I wanted to start studying it, because I thought that people talk about addiction when they talk about video games, but I thought that really couldn't be real. Because an addiction is more than doing something a lot. It means that you're doing it in such a way that it damages your life. It damages your social functioning and your occupational functioning and your school functioning and your family and psychological functioning. And I thought, that can't be what's happening. So I started studying it with this much more clinical definition and found out that unfortunately a lot of kids, they are playing in that way, so that it is really injuring themselves.
Well, what did you find in this study? I mean, how did you pick the people and how did you measure what was just, really a lot of interest in a video game versus really it becoming an addiction where they're spending hours on end and neglecting other aspects of their lives?
Sure. Well, in this study, we surveyed over 3,000 Singaporean school children, starting in grades 3rd, 4th, 7th, and 8th, and then we followed them for 2 years. And that allowed us to see what things predicted who might become addicted to the games and who stayed addicted, as well as who stopped being addicted. And we found some really surprising results. One of them is that of the kids who would be classified as addicted at time 1, 2 years later, 84% of them were still addicted. So that means it's not something that's just a simple problem that maybe it's a fad every kid goes through, but instead, once they got to that problem level, they were kind of stuck there for at least this 2 years of our study.
The question is, for me, I guess, is, well, how do you know that they're at that level? And what are some of the signs that this has really crossed the line?
Sure. Well, we have a questionnaire that's based on how you would measure pathological gambling or gambling addiction. And this includes a number of issues such as whether you lie about how much you do it, which damages your social functioning, whether you steal to support your habit, whether you try to stop but you just can't. So a number of things like that, based off of the way we would diagnose pathological gambling. And you have to endorse at least half of the symptoms. So not any one symptom isn't enough. It actually has to be so important to you that it's damaging multiple areas of your life. You're that far out of balance with it.
You know, I know that your study didn't necessarily look at this, but in the last few seconds that we have together, I'm just wondering, in your opinion, of these Singapore school children who were addicted, do you recommend to parents that they have professional help or seek out professional help to get them unaddicted?
Yes, and in fact, Singapore, I'm meeting with colleagues from Singapore and Korea, both of which countries actually have some very innovative programs to try to help children and also to work with the parents to help them understand their children's problems so that they can be a good part of the solution rather than simply trying to tell kids to turn it off and not really understand why the problem is as big as it is.
Dr. Gentile, thank you so much for joining us. Very interesting study that you're doing. I understand that you've been up for many, many hours, so I hope you can get some sleep. And thanks for joining us here on the Fox 25 Morning News.
It's been my pleasure.